Okay, so this meeting is going to be focused on like more advanced CSS topics, so stuff like flexbox and grid and position absolute. So that means a little more like layout oriented CSS. So there's three things. So again, flexbox, grid, and position. And within position, position is like a CSS property that has 4 values. So it can be static, absolute, relative, and fixed. There's more, but I mean they're less used, so I won't go over them. Flexbox is by far the most useful layout system you'll learn, and it lets you kind of justify and align items within a box. So if you've ever used like Google Docs, you know how there's like text align, you can move it to the start or the end or center. Flexbox is like similar to that, but it lets you do it across like 2 axes. So that text example, it lets you do it across like the main axes, right, left and right. But Flexbox lets you do it within alternate axis, which is like the kind of like the perpendicular axis to that. So you can center it up and down as well within a box. And using these flexboxes, you can pretty much achieve any layout that you want. And if you want to learn more, like pretty much everything there is to know about Flexbox, you can try this game called Flexbox Froggy. It's very fun. It just teaches you pretty much all the flex properties through a fun game type thing. Next is grid. So grid allows you to align content in rows and columns almost like a table. So you define like a template for your grid, and then your elements kind of just sit in those positions. So in this little picture here, you can see there's a header and a footer and a sidebar content and then 2 other contents. So this is for more like intricate layouts. Pretty much you can do this in Flexbox as well. It's just that if you have a bunch of these grids, it's a little like less amount of code to do the same thing. And then the counterpart to Flexbox Froggy is Grid Garden, so cssgridgarden.com. And then next is position. So position is like very manual control. So you can control through top, bottom, left, and right. And those properties are basically like distance from the parent box's border. So if you look at this absolute position thing right here, this arrow here, you're basically defining like a distance from the top border of this box. So this box would be like top, colon, and then whatever this distance is. And then you can also do it from the left. So same thing here. Yeah, and then there's also relative and fixed. I'll go over more of those later, but fixed is basically it stays in the same position on the screen. No matter how much you scroll the page, it's just gonna like be there. So if you think about it, like a header would be perfect for position fixed. It always has to stay at the top, and it's always at the top. So yeah. Yeah, let's get into it. First, though, I want to go into more about like Flexbox. So you don't have to do any of this. This is just like teaching Flex. So I have this folder called Flex demo. So this is my little HTML file. I have a container div, so I have a big div, that's this gray part, and then I have 9 boxes within it, 9 identical boxes, and they are the blue things. So if I go here, my container, it has a height and a width. It's like approximately square, so it's kind of square. It has this background color and a border, but more importantly, the way we signify like an element is using flex is we use this property, display flex. So by default, the display is block, but by setting it to flex, we put in like flex mode, kind of. So if I look at this box, this container thing, I have each of these little boxes, and they're all in a row. And that row is defined by flex direction. So down here, I'm going to do flex direction, and then I'm going to say column. If I do column, now they go downwards. So that flex direction, by default, it's row, but you can set it to column. So right now, I'm just going to do row. But the thing is, we don't like. I want to put it into a row of 3 boxes. But before that, actually, I'm going to center them. So you see how they're all at the top of this box? The way to center it is to go with justify or align items center. So if I do this, now they're on the center. So this align items property, it aligns them like in the up and down direction, but it's not always up and down. So now if I set this to flex direction column, now it centers it left and right. So align items kind of centers on the alternate axis to the box. So if you were to draw a line like going down, right? So you have the line going down. This is our main axis. But this is our alternate axis. So it's perpendicular to, like, right now this is direction column. The alternate axis is going horizontal if it is direction column. And then we're basically saying with align item center, we want the position on like this axis to be right in the center here. And then the counterpart to this, I'm going to comment out all of these boxes except one. The counterpart is, so now we have one box and it's at the top, but it's still centered horizontally. So I'm going to do justify content centered. Now why they did justify content and align items is a mystery. We don't know why, but this is kind of weird syntax, but you just got to kind of remember that it's justify content for the main axis and then center for the alternate axis. So now this thing is here, right in the dead center. So if I remove this align item center, it's going to go to the left. So because we're in flex direction column. But if I switch this to flex direction row, now it did the same thing as before as when we had align item center and flex direction column. So if I set flex direction row, our justify content is going to go in the main axis, which now, since it's flex direction row, our main axis is going this way. So we place our items all right in the dead center of this axis, right here. And then again, if I were to set align items, this is our main axis, and this is our alternate axis. So it's going to center it here horizontally, and then here vertically because of align items. That's kind of confusing. Does anyone have any questions about that? Or like, want me to go over that again? No? Okay. And then if you add more boxes, so I'm going to add 2 boxes now. Get this guy out. Let's add 2 boxes. Yeah, now we have 2 boxes, and they're both in the center. What if we wanted to send these to either side of this box? So I'm going to set flex direction row and then get rid of this align items. So what we have here is just 2 boxes here. But I want to put one of these boxes on this edge and one of these boxes on the other edge. So what I'm going to do, instead of center, you can do space dash between. So now it's basically saying maximize the space in between each box. So the way to do that is to put a gap here, basically. You can also do space around. So this is like setting the space around each item to be the same. So if I were to, I don't think inspect has a nice view for this, but it kind of just sets the space around each element to the same value. If I do space evenly, now this one is nice. This one makes the space in between each item instead of around each item the same. So there's 3 like ways to do that. But on the align thing, there's nothing except start, end, and space evenly. Also end. The default property for justify content is start. So this is just our plain behavior, right? But if we want to move them to be on the right side align, we just do justify content end. And now they're on the end. And all align items can do is start, which is again default. They can do center, which moves it to the bottom, and then it can also do end, which is flex end, which is at the bottom. So yeah, those are our 3 properties for align. And then if I were to flip this, right, if I were to do flex direction column, same thing applies. I didn't set this to end. Now we have column, end, and end. So on the main axis, it's actually, I'll set this one to start. Flex start. So main axis, again, since our flex direction is column, so that means our items are going downward. On the main axis, we want to do it at the start. So that is right here, right there. And then the alternate axis, which is going this way, because it's 90-degree angle to this, it's we have to do flex end. So that means it's at the arrow side. So it's right, oops, it's right here. So yeah, flex. Now we can actually start our app. So, 1 second. Okay, first thing we gotta do is make this app directory. So actually I'm gonna open a new thing. I'm gonna call this post workshop. Okay, we're gonna go into our post workshop folder. So this is the starter code basically. I'm gonna start up my live server. Okay. So this is my little live server. Now notice that this index.html, if I remove it, it still goes to the same page. So what this is telling me is that if I just go to like the domain and then slash, it'll find the index.html in this folder and it'll like put it there. So if I wanted to do /app, then what I would need to do is make another folder and then put index.html inside it. And then let me delete the body so I know that it's different. I'm going to delete all this. So if I go to /app, now we have a blank screen. So now this is correlated with this app folder. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make an empty nav bar. So this is our like app section of our little app. So we're going to make a little box at the top. So this is kind of our header. Something like this. This is going to have our like little logo and then any links that we want. So I'm going to make a div. I'm going to say ID equals navbar, and then inside this I'm going to make some text. So I'll do a h1 and I'll call our little app quick cards. Yeah, that's our app name. So if I save this, we have a little thing here. Next, I'll make a link. So I'll make two links actually. So one is going to be called home. So this will just take us to our home page. And then one is going to be called create. And then to this I'm going to call it, I'm going to link this to /app. This, if I click this home, it'll just link to the /app page. If I do href/app/create, I'll go more into what creation is, or like just the structure of this. So if I look at this, this doesn't look very visually appealing, right? So these are on different columns. That's not really what we want. So I'm going to make a style.css to style our stuff. And then on this index, on our little elements, we should probably give the header and then the links some style or some IDs. So I'm going to call this one ID equals logo text, and then I'll call this one ID equals home link, and then this one can be create link. So nothing changed, of course. And our CSS is already linked because I just copied this. So our CSS, and if there was a script, then it would be linked, but there isn't. I don't like the font of this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look for a font. So fonts.google.com is a good font thing. So you can browse like a bunch of fonts. There's pretty much every font you can think of here. So like, and then the key I want to look for is sans serif. So sans serif is, if you look at serif fonts, they have this little, like they have little marks at the edges, right? So they look a bit old, I don't know. But if I look at sans serif, it's just like flat. It's like what I have in my browser here, right? It doesn't have any serifs, is what they're called. So I'm gonna search for a font. I think the one I like, or the one I wanted, was Red Hat Display. So this font, you can choose whatever you want, by the way, but I'm just gonna choose this one. So this is my little font page. I'm gonna select 3 variants. So I'm gonna do regular 400. So this is just plain text. So I'm gonna add that to our little cart. I'm gonna remove all first. So select 400. I'm gonna select my 500. I'm gonna select 600, and then finally 700, which is bold. So just steps up the boldness thing. And then this little selected family sidebar should pop up. Copy this text. So now all we have to do to import this is go to this thing again. Above this style.css, I'm just gonna paste that in. And then I'm also gonna edit the title while I'm at it. So yeah, title, and then we have our font links, and then we have our CSS link. And the font links, they have to be before the CSS link, or otherwise we can't use these fonts in our CSS. Yeah, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define a bunch of global styles to my thing. This is called like reset CSS. So every browser has their own default styles, and sometimes we don't want them, right? So if I look at this this thing right here, oops, what the hell? How did that happen? It's style itself. Okay. If I look at my body, it has margin of its own, right? Our default margin is 8px. I don't like that. I don't want that. So I'm gonna say on my body, I'm gonna say margin 0. So that should remove all the margin. So yeah, it's gone. Next thing I'm gonna do is my header element, it has some margin on it too. I don't really want that either. So I'm going to select my header elements as well as my paragraph element. All of those have default margin, and I'm going to remove it. So now, no margin, no spacing. Very nice. Finally, I'm going to apply the font to every single element. So all of these elements, I'm going to say font-family. This is how you do a font. You do font-family, and then in quotes, you put the name of the font. So in this case, it's Red Hat Display. So I'm going to do that. Red Hat Display, and then semicolon. If I reload my thing, now it has a font. Why is it styling itself? I don't know. Let me try getting rid of that. Okay, yeah, so now the stylus is gone. We have a font. I think the best thing you can do to any site is just put a font on it. Default fonts are not pretty. Yeah, next let's style our navbar. So our navbar, I'm going to make it blue. So let's say hashtag navbar. Let's find a color for it. Color picker. Let's go for blue. So I already have a color picked out, but this is, I like just Googling color picker and using this one. It's a great color picker. So I'm going to say background color hashtag 3235E5. So now it's blue. Fun. Next thing we're going to do, since this is blue now, this text has to become white. So let's turn all the text white. So let's select our logo text. So hashtag logo text, color white. Now it's white. Now we have to select the links. So the easiest way to select the links is just to do navbar and then select every A element within navbar, like directly as a child of navbar. So these don't have any class name on it, so I'm just going to select both of them with that instead of setting class. We're going to say color white. So yeah, they're all nice now. Next thing we're going to do is flex. So Again, I want these all on the same line, right? I want the logo, and then the links, I want them to be on like this corner of the nav bar. So let's set it to use flex. Let's set the flex direction to be row. So now we have this, but this is not exactly what I want. So as you remember, justify content is what we want for this. Since we want to align these on the main axis, we got to put these two links on this corner of the screen. So I would use space between to maximize the space between the elements. So I'm going to do justify content space between. So this is an outcome, but this isn't exactly what I want, right? I want the home and create to be in their own group. But before we do that, let's center them vertically. Align items center. Yeah, so now they're centered vertically. Yeah, that is good, but again, we have this problem. So the way you fix this is you do nested flex boxes. So let's make another flex box within our existing flex. Let's call it navbar link container. And then let's put these two guys in there. So now they're here, but the style, remember the style we selected navbar A. Let's just change this to navbar link container A. And now they're selected and they're all in their own group. So this is pretty much exactly what we wanted. Now let's just clean this up a bit, make it look nice. I'm going to add some padding, some horizontal padding, because our logo is touching the edge of the screen. I don't want that. So let's say padding 0, 20 px. So 20 px on each side. That's a little nicer. We'll set its height to be a fixed value. Let's just set it to 70 px. So it's not dependent on the contents, right? And then now it's a little taller. Yeah, that's it for now. Then our logo text. Let's do some, actually that's it. And then our A text. So it's a little small and I don't like these underlines. So let's do something about that. I'm going to set text decoration, which is what controls the underline. I'm just going to set it to none. So that'll make these just plain links, but they still work, even though there's no underline. Next, I'm going to make them a little bigger. So font size 18 px. Now they're slightly larger. And then finally, I'm going to do font weight 500. So this is how bold it is. 500 is one step up from normal or regular, which is 400. So if I do 500, it would be slightly bolder, but not super, not as bold as this header font right here. And then I want to do something. So I want to make these actually, you know how we remove the underline? Now I want to bring it back, but only when we hover them. So the way we do that, from I think 2 weeks ago, we do :hover on the A, and then these styles in this box will apply on hover. So I'm just going to do text decoration underline. So now if I hover these, they underline. So that's exactly what we wanted. Next thing, these two are too close together, and we already have a navbar. So why don't we just make a flex? Why don't we just make it flex? So on this link container, I'm going to set its display to flex. So now it's a flex div, not much changed. And then I'm going to use a property called gap. So gap is the distance between flex items. So if I set the gap to, let's say, 20 px, now they're going to be 20 px apart. So the distance between these two is 20 px. So yeah, I think this is pretty much all our navbar is going to be. So our index.html. So here's a problem. So I'm going to make a app div. Let's make an app div. ID equals app. I'm going to add a bunch of paragraph elements saying, so first one will be top, but the next ones will say something else. So actually, I'm going to make a bunch of them to show what's wrong with this. So we have a bunch of text, but the problem is that when we scroll down, our header doesn't stay at the top. Oh shit. How long has it been doing that?
It was like 5 seconds.
10 seconds? That sucks. There we go. Okay. So again, when I scroll down now, this header, it doesn't stay at the top, right? We want this to stay at the top. And from the slides, the way we did that was with the position element to like kind of stick it at the top. So our nav bar, I'm going to set position and then fixed. So this is going to fix it at the top, but the problem is that now, since it's position fixed, it's no longer like the width is no longer max. So let's just set the width to 100%, and then yeah, that should be good. So now it's the full width, but this is too wide. Let's see why. So this is too wide because we didn't set our top and left. So again, top is the distance from the top. So if I set this distance to 20 px, now there's like 20 px of gap above this nav bar from this top property. So I can like change this up and down. Okay, I can change this top. I can even make it negative to make it go into the top. But I'm just going to set it to 0 because I want this to be right sitting at the top. So set top to 0. And then since it's like the left doesn't really matter here, but I'm going to set it to 0. The left does matter, but 0 is what we want, right? If I want 20 px, right, then it'll be there. I don't really want that, so yeah. Left 20 px, or 0 px. 0. Okay. So I see a problem now. This scroll bar is being annoying, and it's blocking our view. And also another problem is that, you remember that little top element we have here, this top thing? We can't see that anymore, which means that this top element is like hidden underneath our header. So the way we fix that is pretty simple. All we do to our app right here is we do, where's our app? Oh, I didn't make an app yet. So app top, or margin top, right? We're gonna just space it 70 px from the top. If you remember, the height of this navbar was 70 px. So all I'm doing is shifting down the app, the actual content, by 70 px, and now it's down here, which is what we want. I'm also going to set the height of this thing to just be like take up the remaining space. So the way I would do that is just set it to calc. Okay, this is a little weird. I'll explain this, but calc is just saying it lets you subtract and add units. It does math on units. So this VH element, it's equal to 1% of the height of the screen. So what I'm saying here is just saying the entire height of the screen, subtract 70 px from that, and that's the height of this app. So if I like hovered the app, the remaining space, I don't know if I can, I don't know, I can't like do that, but the remaining space here is technically equivalent to the entire space of the screen minus 70 px for the header. So that's all we're going to do. And then another thing we're going to do is set the overflow to hit auto. Yeah. So what that did is that it's a little more complex, but I'm just going to try and touch on it. It's basically saying cap this app's like height to this, and then also let it scroll. So now we can scroll within the app. This isn't scrolling on an entire page, it's just scrolling on this div. We can go over that later. It's not like a big topic, so we'll deal with that later. I'm going to try and fix. Okay, yeah, there. Now this thing is fixed. But we have some other styles. That's okay. Okay. Why do I have other styles? Okay. Let me try and change the port for my live server. Okay, there you go. Trying to figure out why this width is screwed up, but it should look fine on your computer. It's just not working on mine. That's okay for now. Next thing we gotta do is let's actually add stuff to our app section now. So I'm gonna get rid of all these styles, right? I don't need them. Does that fix it thing? No, it does not. Okay. So our little app. So we have to basically, our dashboard right here, this is our app's dashboard. So I want to be able to create a flashcard set and then also view all my flashcard sets. So what I'm thinking is for the design, so I kind of have like some text here. Let's say flashcard sets. So this is my little header for this. And then we have a bunch of boxes in here. We have like a box here, a box here, a box here, and then the last box is going to say create. And this is how we create another flashcard set. So if I go to my app, first thing we got to do, of course, is make that header. So I'll make it a H2. We'll say flashcard, let's call it flashcard sets header, and I'll call this flashcard sets. So this is our like descriptor for this. Then I'm gonna make a flashcard sets container. So remember how we had a bunch of boxes? I want to make a container for all those boxes so we can put them all in one place. So I'm going to call this flashcard sets container, and I'm going to do nothing in it. Actually, I'm going to put a button in it. So each of those little boxes that I showed you, we're going to make those buttons, because you can actually like do whatever you want to a button. You can disfigure them completely and they'll still work. So we'll call this one our set create button. We'll touch on like how to actually make the buttons through JavaScript for our sets that we create, but for now we gotta make like a button to create them, right? So I'm gonna say create and then add a little plus. You're gonna keep it as simple as possible. So we have our little flashcard sets container. Next thing we gotta do is style it. So, and then one thing I want to do is add a CSS variable. So you can like add variables to CSS. So the way you do that is you do :root to define like where you'll put all your variables, and then I'm gonna make an accent variable. So remember this like blue color here? I want to save this so I don't have to like find it and type it every time. So this right here, I'm gonna copy it. I'm gonna put it in root as -- accent, and then put the little color there. And then the way I use this is I'll copy this, and then I do var as in variable, and then I paste it in. So if I do this, then it should work. So this is using the value of this guy right here. That's nice. Next thing we gotta do is let's make so our flashcard sets is kind of weird. I want this centered. So again, the way we do that is flexbox. So I wasn't lying when I said that flexbox you'll be using pretty much everywhere. So display flex, this, they have to go down, so that means the direction is column. Flex direction column. And then I say, let's make them start at the top, right? So justify content start. If I were to look at this guy, then also my app, I want to say width 100%. Yeah, okay. So justify content start. So nothing changed, that's the default value. We didn't really have to do that, but it helps to be explicit. And then finally, align items center. So this is going to center them on the alternate axis, which is horizontally, and this is kind of what we wanted, so that's good. Next thing is I want to put some space in between these two things. So flashcard sets in the button. I'm going to say gap 10px. Now there's a gap. And then also I want to style this header right here. So this is the ID, the little flashcard sets header. We'll do flashcard sets header, and we'll say margin top 14px. And then we'll also make it a little bigger. It's kind of small. So let's say font size 20px, or 28px actually. So it's a little bigger and it's spaced from the top, so that's good. Next thing we gotta do is style our little buttons. So when we have like the rest of this done, we're gonna have a bunch of other buttons, but these buttons are gonna be like going to this flashcard set. So let's say, oh no, not again. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so these, we have like a bunch of buttons ideally in this, but instead of, I didn't save my CSS. Instead of create, it's gonna have like the name of your flashcard set. So let's say you named your flashcard set 1. So instead of create, this would be set 1. But basically all of these have to be like the same, and I don't want to add a class to all of these. So the way we're going to select this is the same way we selected it in the header for all the links. We just do flashcard sets header or container, and then select all the buttons inside. And to that, I'm going to make them all 250px wide, and then 150px tall. I'm going to set the font size to 20px. Let's make them bold. So font weight 700. So 700 is bold again. This is what they look like now. So they're a little bigger, and then we're gonna disfigure them even more. So let's say border radius 12px, and then border, we're gonna set the border color here. So 4px dashed, and then we're gonna use our color variable again. So bar accent, and now we have some slightly styled buttons. And then also I want to set the background color too. So I'm thinking a light blue. Let's get something like this. Background color, that's too much. Okay. I have a color saved. I will choose C7 C8FF. Okay, that looks fine. Come on, buddy. Okay, yeah. So now we have our little create buttons. But what happens if I squish them? It's ugly. What if I'm on like a phone screen, right? Let's say I'm on a iPhone SE. This is kind of ugly. So what I'm going to do instead of this is I am going to go to my flashcard sets container, and I'm going to do something to it. So I'm going to make it a flex box again. So another flex box. This time we're going to say, okay, again, display flex, and the things should go in a row. So flex direction row, justify content center. We're basically going to center all of these. Same with align items center. And then they look like this right now. But if I squish this, it doesn't like getting squished. So what we gotta do is put this property called flex wrap on it. So if I do flex wrap, now these buttons, they're gonna wrap. They're gonna turn into, okay, I gotta figure this stupid thing out. Something here is like, the width is off. Let me figure it out. Width is not set on this body. Okay, so I don't want to set this actually. I'm just going to delete my entire nav bar. Oh, that works. This works better. Okay. It's fine. We're good. So now, if I make this shrink, now they actually like, okay, I'm gonna call these like 1, 2, 3, 4, so you can see which thing they are. So they're all 1, 2, 3, 4 in order. Hold on, CSS. Okay. So if I make it like, if I give all of them space to exist, then it's just going to be in a row. If I shrink it, now the fourth one, since we said justify content center, this is going to be centered horizontally, which is nice. And then if I do it again, another nice center, and then finally we have just basically a column layout. So yeah, this is flex wrap. And then finally we're going to give them some gap. So right now they're all squished together. I don't really like that. So we're going to give them a gap of 8px. So now they're all spaced 8px away from each other, and they're happy. Yeah. Next, this create button. I'm going to get rid of all of these ones. I don't want them. So create button. We got to make it do something now. So I'm going to make a JS file. So again, remember that our JS is already linked because I copied it. Yeah, so I'm going to select this create button. So document, or I guess const create, let create button equals document.query selector. This is how we select elements if you weren't here last time. You do document.query selector and then hashtag what set create button, so that we select them the same way as we do in CSS. So now this create button, it contains our button, and we're going to do something when it's clicked. So create button dot add event listener. So we're going to add a click event listener, and then on click we are going to do something. So let me just show you that this works. Clicked. So on click it's going to log clicked. So if I go to console and save this, if I click create, you get clicked. So this works, this event listener works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to /app/create. So this is our creation page. We're going to have another page for creation. So we're going to do window.location.pathname equals /app/create. So window.location basically contains an object for just the URL, and then if we do .pathname, that just gets everything after like the .com kind of. So in this case it's /app, and we want to change this to /app/create. So yeah, I'm going to do /app/create, and then if I click this button, please CSS, please load. Okay, I click this. Now it goes to /app/create, and it errors because we have nothing there, which is expected. I think I had some other styles on this button here. Actually, no, we're done. Okay, so we're done with this like app page for now, at least. Next thing we gotta do is make our app/create. So again, just like before, we create a folder called create, and then I'm gonna paste my HTML file into it, and then let's get rid of get rid of these guys, and then we can make our style.css. But notice that we have the same navbar, the same logo text, the same everything, right? But that's all in this file, right? We have to somehow get only the relevant stuff from that file. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to separate this into its own CSS file that we can use everywhere. So I'm going to copy, I don't know, all of this stuff. I'm going to copy all of this and make a global style file. So I'm going to call it global.css. I'm going to paste it here and then delete this stuff because we don't need it. And then what I'm going to do in our index, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to add another thing called another link, and then I'm going to import this global.css file. So now we have two CSS files imported. So we have the normal style.css file, and we also have this global.css file. So this contains like all the reset CSS. This contains our what's this called? CSS variable, and we can use this in our like normal style file too. And then we have all the nav bar cells that are going to be like the same across both pages, right? So this is all in our global. And then I'm going to do the same thing to this create file, create HTML. But the difference is that here, since this global isn't in the same like folder, I gotta go back one folder to get it. So the way I do that is do global.css. So // basically brings you to the previous, like the parent directory, which is like where global.css is, and then we just select global.css. So now if I go to app, right, so these styles work like normal, right? Everything is all good. We're fine, but okay, what is unsaved? So, and then, yeah, so this all works like normal, and then I go to create, and the styles are the same. I didn't have to duplicate my CSS, right? So the advantage to just having a global CSS file for this is if I want to change the navbar cell, let's say I want to change like the height to 170 px. If I did that in like, if I had two different CSS files, I would have to do the same change on both, and that's just kind of annoying, right? So I'd rather do it in one place and have it updated everywhere. Yeah, so we have that, and then next thing we're going to do is actually fill out this create page. So create. First thing we're going to do is in our app, let's make a header for like what the page is. Create a flashcard set. We're going to set its ID to it sets ID to we don't need an ID on it. It's fine for now. Div ID equals set container. So this is like the container for our creation page. Set info container. So when we create a set, we have to give it a name. Not this shit again. Okay, so when we create a set, a flashcard set, we're going to have to give it a name and a description. So what I'm thinking is like something like Quizlet, right? So if you create a Quizlet set, that's, I don't know, study set. You have to give it a name and then a description, and then you add all the cards, like all like the flashcards, right? So we're going to make something to contain like these two things right here. So first thing we need is a set name. So h5, also I'm going to add the thing to reset CSS, right? So h5. Actually, I'm just going to call it h2. I don't know why. Yeah, nothing to do here. I don't want to do an h5. I just want to do an h2. We'll call it set name, colon, and then we're going to have an input. So text input, type equals text, and we'll say ID equals set name input, and then placeholder, we'll say it's placeholder to set name. So I go back here, now we have a flashcard set, and its placeholder is set name. And then I want these two to be on the same line. So how do we do that? We do flex. So div ID equals set name container. So we have a CSS here, so set name container. I'm going to set its display to flex. I'm going to set its flex direction to row. We don't have to do anything else. The default properties will be fine. Actually, let's put a little gap. So let's do 6px gap. 8px gap. So yeah, this is better. Instead of set name, I want to do like chemistry 102, 103, I don't know. So just to give like an example value instead of just the same set name, right? Next thing, I'm going to copy this entire thing. We're going to do description. So set desk container, set desk input, and then I'm going to change this to set description. And this is a new element, so I'm going to say text area. This one is interesting. You don't need to do type equals text. So text area, I gotta end it. This one has a closing tag, unlike input. So let me reload this. So text area, you can put enters in it, right? So it's like a Google Docs thing. You can put whatever you want in here. It's like a free-form text input. And I'll say, what is this set about? Question mark. And then, yeah, it'll have, like, you can type whatever you want in it. This guy, let's do another flex container. Set desk container. And yeah, it'll just be like this. So we have our set name and set description. What do we want to do next? So let's just style this a bit. I know I can't like get through this whole create page in time, so let's just make it look okay for now. This header here, I'm going to call it create header. Let's say font size, we'll set it to something normal. I'm also going to make this an H2 because it's too big. What did I do for this header? 28px. We're going to copy that. 28px. Yeah, so that's like that. And margin top, I think I did 12px. So yeah, it looks a little better. And then these things are a little too big, so let's make them smaller. So what do? I do set info container, and I'm going to select the H2 within these. So set info container. So that little angle bracket thing, you can go like multiple levels. So if, say I want to select this H2 using this set info container. So I can say select the H2 which is inside a div which is inside set info container. So I can say div H2. So H2s inside a div inside set info container. I'm going to set their font size to, I don't know, 20px. It's a little more reasonable. Font weight we'll set to 500. No, a little more, 600. That didn't do anything. We'll keep it at 7. Okay. And then same way we did this, we're going to also select the input or a text area. So I'll just copy this. Actually, no, we'll select the input first. This does not need a font weight. Let's add some padding to it. So padding 4px, 8px. Looks slightly better, kind of. Let's make this guy bigger. Yeah, that looks a little better. And then for the text area, actually we already selected these guys. Yeah, actually I'll just use these because we already have them. And then set desk input. This one will make it a little smaller. It doesn't need to be as big, right? And then let's set its default width and height. So right now it doesn't have a width, so I'm going to set it to like 250 px. There's height to 150 px, just like our cards. I don't know. That's too big. 300 and 100. That's better. Okay, this will work. The thing is, there's no there's no gap here, right? So this box is like directly touching that box. So let's add a little gap. And we already have this set info container, which we can use. So this isn't a flex right now, but we can make it a flex box. We'll do set info container display flex like usual. Now it's kind of screwed up because the default direction is row. So let's make it column, flex direction, column, and then let's set a gap of 4px. So yeah, let's do 8px. So this is our little starting part of our creating a flashcard. And it's 8 p.m. so I think that should be it. Next time, I think we'll probably continue on this. So we're gonna create the rest of this like create page and then have it actually work in the app. But then after that, oh my god, stupid style. Okay, my thing just crashed. Okay. Yeah, so after that we'll have our little flashcards pop up here, and we'll actually save this data. So we'll let the user make accounts and save their data. Well, kind of like a Quizlet clone, but yeah. Again, this recording will be